Good evening. You're watching The Digital Age, and I'm James Goodale. We got a great show for you tonight with Carl Bernstein. He's written a new book, new because it's just come out in paperback, and he talks about Hillary Clinton in that book. Surprise, surprise. And we want to ask him tonight, after he spent all that time writing the book, 7 years, and in light of the current campaign, is he disappointed in Hillary Clinton? Thank you very much for coming, Carl Bernstein. Here's your book. All right. What does it say? It's a woman in charge. I've read every page of it. All of you out there, read every page. It's the best book on Hillary that I've read. It's encyclopedic. I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't purely journalistic. It's a terrible thing to say for someone who used to be at the New York Times. Probably not a great compliment to you since you were the Washington Post, but it's a very, very thorough book, and I really like it. Now look, Carl, as they say in television, you know anything to say?
In digital land?
Okay, here's, when you get to the end of the book, you sort of tell us what your message is. There is often a disconnect between her conviction and words and her action. This is where Hillary disappoints. But the jury remains out. She still has time to prove her case, to effectuate those things that might make her special, and let her fulfill her potential, those are my words, quotes,
I was going to say, I didn't write that.
Well, okay. Because she has, because she has within, may have the potential to change the world if only a little. All right?
I think actually I better say what the book really is, since I, with all due respect,
but that's the summary of the book.
No, it's not the summary of the book.
Oh, it is.
No, as you know, this is a
real, shorter or long version.
This is a real biography, and at the end, I take about 2 pages raising questions on many sides of the equations, plural, about Hillary Clinton. But I think the reason that it has gotten the kind of attention and reviews that it has is because it is a real biography that moves away from the caricature that we've had of her until now, that is a result of so much misinformation and disinformation, on the one hand promulgated by enemies and opponents, and on the other hand by acolytes and true believers. What I do say at the end of the book is that Hillary Clinton has had a difficult relationship with the truth, going back to her Arkansas years as a result, and I very carefully put this in a context, about her own attempts to explain her life in terms of obfuscation, in terms of omission, in terms of eliding, and partly because so much of her life, the themes going back even to childhood that you see in this book, has been about fear of shame and humiliation. So you have to put all this into a context, including an out-of-control special prosecutor who wanted to throw her in a clink or have her indicted when he himself was on the wrong side of the law in terms of his abuses of power, to look at some of the reasons there have been these omissions, obfuscations, whatever. And part of the book does concern itself with that. But what you get in the book, as you've read it, I think, is a picture of a remarkable, compelling person who's very different than all the caricatures, going back to the fact that here's someone whose real life, the foundations of her life, have always been based, more than anything else, on religion and family. Now there were a lot of people in the White House, as the Clinton White House, who thought she used her religiosity in a self-righteous way. But what I'm trying to get at is that finally, I think, in this portrait of her real life, which is based on interviews with a couple hundred people who knew her best through all the critical junctures of her life, and most of them, almost all of them, talk on the record. It's not background. It's so finally there's a kind of verisimilitude, and we say, oh, that's who she is. And I think if you read this book, you tell me, and you see where this campaign is now, you say, oh, I get it.
Yeah, well, I'm going back to, can I use some of your own words here?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So, but the
That's
jury...
why I'm a writer.
Yeah, that's right. But the jury remains out.
Right.
All right.
That's the...
Now, is the jury... we've had a campaign. It's gone on for a long time. I mean, that's a long time for the jury to be out. That's
right.
The public.
Those are the last words of the book, just about, and that was written when I closed the hardback edition of the book was back in May or June, and then there's an afterword to the book that follows it that was written in September. But yeah, the jury. I think the jury does remain out, and certainly for a couple more weeks, there's still a couple members of the jury that haven't been heard from.
If you were a member of the jury, well, how would you vote?
First of all, I don't talk about how I vote because
it's not how. No, come on, Carl.
I don't.
That's an analogy.
Oh,
yeah.
I forget you're a literary guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
In other words, how do you vote in terms of your own judgment with respect to the issues as to which you say the jury is out?
Well, okay.
Not how do you vote.
Let me tell you an interesting thing. There's one. Of all these great reviews I got, there was one negative review, because one of the things I say in the book is Hillary Clinton, and I say it near the end of the book, is someone who has always evolved and learned from her mistakes and her experience. And some reviewer, I can't remember who it was, says Bernstein is dead wrong on that. And I have come around to the conclusion that perhaps I was wrong on that, at least in terms of this campaign, because this campaign looks to me like Hillary Clinton has learned nothing and not evolved in terms of who she was in the White House years. In fact, in the Senate years, we see a Hillary Clinton, much like she was at Wellesley College, self-assured, compelling, fun, at ease, a comfort level with herself that we never saw in the Arkansas years or in the White House, a willingness as a leader, like when she was the student body president at Wellesley, to reach across lines and deal with everybody without hostility, not being strident, just the opposite of the White House years, in which she was combative, take no prisoners, scorched earth, demonizing, and self-righteous. To a degree that I think has served her ill in the White House. What we have seen in this campaign is a devolution to the White House years of that Hillary Clinton, the demonizing, accusatory. Her campaign has really been, I think, to many of the people who like her the best, a real disappointment. And it's not about, as so many commentators were saying the other night after the Wisconsin primary, because she has been ill-served by those in her campaign. She is the campaign. Bill Clinton is the campaign, and this is a campaign for restoration of the Clintons, plural, to the White House, which is, of course, what I write about in the afterword to the book. And it's a very tricky thing to effectuate a restoration. We've never had one in our history. And when you read the book and see how, you know, as someone says toward the end of the book, it's the marriage, stupid. That's, that's what we're dealing with here.
Let's pick up on the theme about Hillary, the entertaining person she was at Wellesley. I was very interested to find out in the book that when she was in law school...
Am I right that you're married to a Wellesley woman?
No, you're wrong. Close. Sister college.
Oh, she went to Smith.
Yes,
that's right.
Am I right in saying you were married to a Wellesley woman?
This is certainly true. I was.
Is that the one way you relate to Hillary Clinton? Is if you see other Wellesley women and see what they're like, then you can understand what she's like?
No, that'd be a terrible caricature to effectuate on women who went to Wellesley or Seven Sisters colleges. All
right, so we'll pass that one.
But no,
let's go back.
But the part on Wellesley, you can't understand Hillary Clinton until you understand the Wellesley years, because in the years at Wellesley is when she comes into her own. She abandons finally the Goldwater politics of her father. She moves, like millions of young Americans at the time during the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement, moves left And at the same time, she rejects radicalism, because, you know, there's always this charge that, oh, Hillary's a leftist, she's a radical. She's fascinated with radicalism, to the point, and here we get back to her omissions and obfuscations. She chooses to go to work in her first summer of law school for the premier left-wing law firm in America, in Oakland, California. Two members of the firm, members of the Communist Party, old friends of my own family, and I talked to them about Hillary there that summer. And of course, well, Hillary writes in her own autobiography that she went to work for this law firm, which was defending the Black Panthers at the time and had nothing really but radical clients. And she writes about it like she was out there handling postal cases. And it's a one-sentence throwaway. And she did her thesis at Wellesley on Saul Alinsky, the great Chicago radical organizer. And her thesis, which I got hold of, is fascinating because she rejects radicalism in her thesis and says, you know, Alinsky's methods really didn't work. But what does she do? She orders Wellesley to lock up the thesis when Bill runs for president and she's in the White House. Well, but again, fear of humiliation, fear of shame, fear of danger.
She's in good company. She's in good company. Michelle Obama has done the same thing.
Done what?
Locked up her thesis. I'm bringing news to you from
I don't know that, and she ought to make it public.
She ought to make it public. You present a pretty good picture. Wellesley, working for the law firm. She actually slimed fish in Alaska. I find that unbelievable. Her popularity with respect to her personality. And
Hillary has much more, like you talk about the slime and fish, you know, during the summer in Alaska. Yeah. Hillary has much more real life experience than Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton is a classic intellectual who works, and a great intellectual, who works off received wisdom, talking to other people, reading. Hillary has always, all her life, worked off her real experience with children. She worked with children. It's true. She studied legal psychology. She worked in a hospital with abused children.
Right, and that's before.
This is before
she's married.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let me ask you something. This portrait you present of Hillary, sort of the real Hillary, which personality is still there, obviously. But here's the question I had. I'm reading about that. Did Bill Clinton ruin her?
Oh, look. This is
what happened?
This is a love affair we're talking about.
But what happened to her?
I mean, what do you mean? What happened to her?
Well, here you got this person who's immensely appealing. She marries Bill. What's his name?
Clinton.
Well,
something very interesting does happen, and I'm not going to make a judgment about what happens. But first of all, these are two people who love each other, who each looks at the other as the brightest star in their constellation, no matter how dysfunctional you or I on the outside might judge their marriage. Judging other people's marriages is a pretty dangerous enterprise. But here is what is important, I think, to understand about the marriage. Hillary Clinton, back to fear of shame or humiliation, failed the D.C. bar exam just around the time that she was finishing up her work with the Nixon impeachment committee. And she never told, as far as I can find out, anyone, except maybe Bill and her family, that she had failed the bar exam. Now, it's no shame to fail the bar exam. Many great judges and lawyers, and I don't know if you passed it the first time or not, have failed the bar exam, and they've taken again. But Hillary Clinton put one throwaway line that she had failed the bar exam in her so-called autobiography published 3 years into her Senate term. So I looked at this and I said, this is astonishing. So I went to Webb Hubbell, her law partner who hired her, and I said, Webb, did you know that Hillary failed the bar exam? He said, it's impossible. I hired her. I was her closest friend. No, I didn't. That couldn't have happened. I said, she did. I went to Nancy Bekovac, Bill and Hillary Clinton's closest friend from law school, who still sees them every month or so. Nancy, do you know that Hillary failed the bar exam? She said, come on, you got to be kidding. She didn't tell anybody for 30 years. What she did do is she took the Arkansas bar, at Bill's insistence, and passed it and followed him to Arkansas. And as she says, I followed my heart, not my head, perhaps. And then what happens in the arc? What's the importance of Bill Clinton's other women? It's not about who these women are or what they did. Well, it's got nothing.
I mean, there's a lot of them in this book.
No, that's not true. As a matter of fact, there's not.
How many women do you think there were?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but it's a lot.
What's important is Hillary's response, because Hillary.
But she's caught. That's my point. She's caught by Bill. Her life's been changed by her.
Look, what she chose to do, she recognized early in the marriage, if not before, that Bill's sexual compulsions, as she calls them, would make him politically not viable if they became known. So she, not Bill, begins covering them up, having the women investigated through Bill's chief of staff, Betsy Wright, having lawyers hired to get affidavits.
But there's no Bill. If there's no Bill, there's no cover-up. If there's no Bill, she doesn't have to take her glasses off. If there's no Bill, she doesn't have to put makeup on.
Look, you said at the beginning of this something about it's not journalistic. I think the thing about this book is that it is, and that's what the reviews go to, that what is good reporting? The best obtainable version of the truth, really. What is good biography? The best obtainable version of the truth. So hopefully that's what this book is. And in that, we come to see, not make judgment. I don't make judgments in the book. What I finally do, I hope, is lay out there for people to say, here is a fascinating life lived. The most famous woman probably in the world, and look at this, it turns out we know almost nothing about the real Hillary and who she really is.
And let's talk about that right now, because Peggy Noonan, who has an absolutely superb
Peggy's been writing some great columns.
Saturday, Wall Street Journal. Everyone who's listening to the show, read her column. It's almost the best political column out there, which is a dangerous thing to say in front of a journalist. But she said in a recent column, look, why doesn't Hillary just unbend and say to her voters, look, here I am up against a phenomenon I didn't anticipate. The phenomenon has a soaring oratory, and I have, not to say experience, but I'm here to say to you, I need your help to support me for the things that I stand for. Why doesn't she have the ability to unbend and bring people in with her in public, apparently the way she does in private? Is that right?
Well, first of all, it's not about what she does in private, because in private she is much looser. She's much more at ease. She can talk 1 minute like a priest and another like a sailor. She's wickedly funny in private. She has a wicked sense of humor.
What does that mean?
Well, she'll do imitations.
Wicked, is it cynical?
No.
But why doesn't she show it out there?
Look, this is a person with a lot of scars. This is a person who has lived, as I say, a somewhat camouflaged life, who is very...
but not all her life. Anyway, I push you enough on that point.
Go ahead. Up through college, I think that's true. Yeah. But also, well, in her childhood, though, she didn't bring a lot of friends home, because her father was this sour, unfulfilled martinet of a man. Let me finish this.
I think we've got a picture of him here. When I looked at that picture in your book, I was scared to death. He is a scary-looking guy.
I'm not going to get into...
Well, I mean, that's... okay, I'm telling you my reaction.
Okay.
That isn't a guy I would want to go home and see.
Well, anyway, he was a martinet. He was verbally abusive and demeaning and diminished Hillary's mother to the point where many people wondered why her mother stayed in the marriage. And, of course, her mother counseled Hillary and Hillary's brothers, you don't get divorced in this family. At a certain point, you don't have to be, this is not psychobiography, but you don't have to be the soprano family shrink at a certain point to say, oh, you read Bernstein's book and you read her childhood and you begin to understand some things about her later life.
But it's very hard. Hearing you say that and hearing you say she's got this wicked sense of humor,
well, she does.
Having you lay out a life.
Okay, but let me answer you.
Authenticity, to go back where we were to Peggy Noonan, I can't get clear in my head why she just doesn't become authentic in front of her audience and say that, I'm not...
It seems to me that the why of why people do things, you, me, Hillary Clinton, is the hardest thing of all to understand. But what is important to understand is the what and the who. And what I'm concerned about in this book is the what and the who. And where you're on to something here, and where Peggy was on to something here, is exactly what this campaign is about. This campaign is about who Hillary Clinton is. And that is what we have seen is, that, look, as somebody says in here, you don't know what you're going to end up with on a given day with Hillary Clinton. You can get the one Hillary Clinton who's wonderful with her friends, and you can get the other one who's going to come in and chew your head off. But what we do know are the campaigns that Hillary Clinton has run. And what she has done in this campaign is to run against a Democrat who agrees with her on most of the issues, exactly as she has run against and managed her husband's campaign against what she calls the right-wing Republican slime machine. The problem is that I think a lot of Democrats are saying, oh my God, look what she is doing. She is treating Obama as if he were Lee Atwater. As if he were George Bush Sr. taking his instructions from Karl Rove. And the result is, I think, I think the exit polls are helpful maybe, but they're just a little snapshot. I think voting is a mystical process. And the deep down, what we have seen is not only people identifying with this crusade and movement of Obama, but real revulsion among many Democrats at what Hillary Clinton has done in the way she has run her campaign, because it's back to misinformation, disinformation, take no prisoners. What happened in South Carolina was not an accident, the excesses of Bill Clinton. That is about the two of them. That is about a strategy.
Let's talk about...
Did he go overboard? Yeah, but what was the strategy? The strategy was indeed what he did there, and when she first mentioned Martin Luther King in the first place. But she played the race card, and she's played the gender card. This is not something that many Democrats find attractive at a certain point. The gender card in particular, I think one of the things that hurt her in Wisconsin, and as you saw the vote in Wisconsin, women abandoned her, and to the point where Obama had almost as many women voters.
You know, but let me just say something, connect the book to what you just said. Because one of the fascinating things I find in the book is that you say, with respect to the style of campaigning, it's Hillary who would come up with the negative, quotes, ads. And therefore, I want to ask you, was he talked about both Hillary and Bill.
Hillary and Dick Morris in the earlier campaigns, but Hillary's the one that kept bringing Dick Morris into the White House, into the campaigns, etc.
Here's the question. The race card was played in South Carolina. Bill Clinton said, oh, it's just like Jesse Jackson. She said, which I thought was really subject to criticism, to a black man, you're a slumlord. She didn't quite say it that way, but for all practical purposes, you're a slumlord.
I don't think that was racist. Incidentally, let's say one.
But here's the question. Is she the one who is thinking about this negative approach to it, or is Bill the one?
First of all, I think there are times you can't separate one from the other. You don't know where one begins and the other ends, perhaps like all of us in our marriages, incidentally.
I know where you begin. I know where I know where I end.
Okay.
And you were married to a wealthy woman, weren't you?
I was at one point, but I don't think that has much to do with.
It doesn't have anything to do with anything. Go ahead.
But the point here is that in Bill Clinton's campaigns, she is the one who developed the basic response strategy.
So
Bill Clinton is much more, oh, I can explain this to someone and bring them around. Hillary has a much more killer instinct, take no prisoners, etc. That's what we've seen in this campaign, and at the same time, it's hardly foreign to Bill either.
Was he negative in his campaigns? Of course, he's only lost one campaign.
Wait a minute. You're talking about as if Bill Clinton had nothing to do with his own presidential campaign in 1992.
I just can't remember. I don't remember remarks like, Well, Jesse Jackson won in South Carolina. I don't remember anything like that from. I just don't remember it.
Well, you know, again, you can go back to it. It's not just about remarks. I mean, you can look at the Sister Soldier strategy. If you want to remember something, you can look. One of the things, and people can go to my website and see this, carlbernstein.com, and a lot of this book, particularly about the young Hillary Clinton, no two white people in American politics who have reached prominence have been as great, it seems to me, on the question of race as Hillary and Bill Clinton have been. So the reason that what happened in South Carolina and the reason that what happened after New Hampshire and their remarks are so extraordinary and receive the attention is that it seems so out of character. Do it on any issue but not race. Particularly Hillary, you who went as two of the scenes in this book to hear Martin Luther King preach twice. Bill Clinton never met Martin Luther King, though he names his heroes as King, Kennedy, and Jefferson. Hillary heard King twice. She met him. His sermon had a great effect on her. And you know, Hillary is the one whose mentor is a black woman. Being Marion Wright Edelman, who started the Children's Defense Fund.
And lots of black friends.
Well, not just black, but both of them have black friends. That's not the point, it seems to me. But rather, her chief of staff was a black woman, the chief who's now the head of her campaign. Hillary, if any two people have a great record in our politics about race, it's these two people. And what is so extraordinary about what happened is that even that was not sacrosanct when it came time to say, I want to be elected, here's what I will do, or I want my wife to be elected, here's what I will do, that there wasn't more sensitivity to it, even if they were misinterpreted.
Well, Carl Bernstein, this should be a 6-hour program, but it isn't, and we've come to an end. So here's the $64 billion question. And this is about whether you're disappointed. Will you be disappointed if Hillary doesn't win, yes or no?
I think her campaign is a very disappointing enterprise. I think it's disappointing in terms of who she can be and has been, and that she has disappointed perhaps herself and those who know her best.
Carl Bernstein, thank you very much for coming by.
Good to be here.
And thank you for coming by. Come by next week and learn more about the digital age. For the digital age, I am James Goodale. Good night and have a good week.